The air in JIRIBAM, a town nestled in the lush hills of Manipur, is thick with fear. Once a testament to peaceful coexistence, JIRIBAM has become a battleground in a conflict that has ripped apart the delicate fabric of Manipur's fragile peace. This is not a spontaneous eruption of violence, it is a meticulously planned campaign of terror unleashed by the MEITEI ARAMBAI group against the KUKI community. The conflict, which first erupted in early May 2023, has its roots in a long-standing ethnic divide between the predominantly Hindu MEITEIs and the largely Christian KUKIs. Armed with sophisticated weaponry and emboldened by a perceived sense of impunity, they have targeted KUKI civilians, their homes and their places of worship, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair. Families huddled in fear as their homes were ransacked and burned, the air thick with the acrid smell of smoke and the sound of gunfire. The elderly and the young, women and children have all been caught in the crosshairs of this conflict. Their lives upended, their futures shrouded in uncertainty. From Imphal to Churachandpur, the ARAMBAI have operated with impunity, their actions seemingly endorsed by elements within the state machinery. The seeds of the violence that would engulf JIRIBAM were sown on May 3, 2023, during a rally organized by the All-Tribal Students' Union Manipur, 8SUM. The rally, intended as a peaceful demonstration against the Manipur High Court's recommendation to grant Scheduled Tribe (ST) status to the MEITEI community, was met with fierce opposition from MEITEI groups, including the ARAMBAI. As the 8SUM rally made its way through the streets of Imphal, the state capital, it was met with stone pelting and arson attacks. The ARAMBAI, armed with machetes, iron rods and Molotov cocktails, were at the forefront of the violence, attacking KUKI participants and setting fire to vehicles. In JIRIBAM, the ARAMBAI, emboldened by their success in Imphal, began targeting KUKI homes and businesses. Mobs, chanting inflammatory slogans, descended upon KUKI neighborhoods, setting fire to houses, shops and vehicles. The police, outnumbered and seemingly unwilling to intervene, stood by as the violence escalated. The events of May 3, 2023 served as a chilling prelude to the horrors that would unfold in the days and months that followed. The violence that began on May 3, 2023 did not abate in the following days. Instead, it intensified, engulfing JIRIBAM in a wave of terror and destruction. The ARAMBAI, now operating with greater impunity, roamed the streets of JIRIBAM, their ranks swelled by MEITEI youth armed with crude weapons. KUKI homes were systematically targeted and torched, the night sky illuminated by the flames of burning buildings. Families huddled in fear, listening to the sounds of gunfire and the screams of their neighbors. The streets of JIRIBAM, once bustling with life, were now eerily deserted, littered with debris and patrolled by armed mobs. Reports emerged of police officers standing by as KUKI homes were torched, their inaction fueling accusations of complicity. By May 5, 2023, JIRIBAM had fallen silent, the silence of a graveyard. June 6, 2024 will forever be etched in the memory of the KUKI people as a day of unimaginable horror. A year after the initial outbreak of violence, just as the wounds of the past were beginning to heal, the ARAMBAI returned to JIRIBAM, their fury undiminished, their thirst for vengeance unsated. Under the cover of darkness, the ARAMBAI entered JIRIBAM, their ranks bolstered by reinforcements from outside the town. Then, as the first rays of dawn broke, they launched their assault, a coordinated attack that left the KUKI community reeling in shock and disbelief. The police, once again, were nowhere to be seen. The ARAMBAI's attacks were not merely about territorial control. They were about instilling terror in the hearts of the KUKI people. They aimed to break their spirit, to erase their presence from the land. Eyewitness accounts paint a chilling picture of the ARAMBAI's reign of terror. They would often round up KUKI families and force them to watch as they set fire to their homes. Men were beaten mercilessly, often tortured before being killed. Women were not spared either, subjected to horrific sexual violence, their cries for help echoing unanswered in the night. They desecrated churches and graveyards, their actions an assault not just on the living, but also on the dead. The KUKIs, once a vibrant and thriving community, were now scattered and displaced, their lives shattered, their future uncertain. The ferocity and scale of the ARAMBAI's attacks were met with a deafening silence from the authorities. Despite overwhelming evidence of their involvement in the violence, the police and the state administration seemed reluctant to take any concrete action against them. The police were conspicuous by their absence during the ARAMBAI's attacks, often arriving at the scene only after the attackers had retreated. Even when they did intervene, their response was often lackluster, characterized by a reluctance to confront the perpetrators. There were widespread allegations of police bias against the KUKIs, with reports of police officers turning a blind eye to their plight, and even in some cases, actively colluding with the attackers. The state government's response was equally inadequate. Despite repeated appeals for help from the KUKI community, the government seemed paralyzed by inaction, failing to take any meaningful steps to stop the violence or provide relief to the victims. The conflict in JIRIBAM has left an enduring legacy of pain, suffering, and displacement. Thousands of KUKI families were forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge in makeshift camps, churches, and with relatives in other parts of the state. These camps, often overcrowded and lacking basic amenities, became grim symbols of their displacement, a constant reminder of the violence they had endured. The violence took a heavy toll on the KUKI community's physical and psychological well-being. Many bore the physical scars of the attacks, bullet wounds, burns, and broken bones, a testament to the brutality they had endured. The psychological trauma, however, ran much deeper. Nightmares, flashbacks, and anxiety became a part of their daily lives, a constant reminder of the horrors they had witnessed. The conflict also had a devastating impact on the KUKI community's economic livelihood. As of today, an uneasy calm prevails in JIRIBAM. The ARAMBAI, having achieved their objective of driving out the KUKIs, have retreated to their strongholds. The town, however, remains a shadow of its former self, its streets deserted, its buildings scarred by violence, its air thick with tension. The KUKIs, scattered and displaced, are apprehensive about returning to their homes, their trust in the state shattered, their faith in the future shaken. The peace that holds in JIRIBAM is a fragile one, hanging by a thread. The underlying issues that led to the conflict, the ethnic divide, the struggle for resources, the lack of trust in the state, remain unaddressed. The situation in JIRIBAM is a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of unchecked ethnic violence. The violence in JIRIBAM is not just a statistic, a news headline that will fade with time. It is a human tragedy, a story of lives shattered, of dreams broken, of a community torn apart. We must remember the victims of this conflict, those who lost their lives, their homes, their loved ones. We must remember their stories, their resilience, their hopes for a better future. We must honor their memory by working towards a future where such violence is unthinkable, where all communities can coexist in peace and harmony. We must confront the ideologies of division and intolerance that continue to plague our society and work towards creating a more just and equitable society for all. The violence in JIRIBAM is a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of safeguarding human rights and dignity.